This is the M4 MacBook Air. Why is this thing on fire? Because this computer is fire. Among other things, I am a video editor. I guess my biggest claim to fame is that I shot and edited a piece for the Antiques Roadshow at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. How about that? I'm the real deal. With this, I'm starting to feel a little bit like my identity is being stripped from me. I'm a little mad at Apple. You see, I've always considered myself a power user. In the past, I wouldn't even think about getting an Air model of the MacBook. It's just not strong enough for my power user needs. But then, I got this thing yesterday to test it out. I got the blue one, although these lights make it hard to see how blue it is. I've been messing with this M4 Air all day. I've been working on this thing all day. Aside from YouTube, I have a salaried job where I occasionally use Autocad to make these 2D floor plans for these big events. This computer has no problems at all with Autocad, I'll have you know. At least not when making 2D wireframe drawings. It is every bit as snappy as my M4 Max MacBook Pro. Next, I was using SketchUp to rearrange my garage studio. SketchUp, the lightest of all 3D workloads. Again, no noticeable difference between this computer and my M4 Max. Then I went on to some video edits. And this is where the fabric of my understanding of my place on the nerd scale started to fall apart forever. I started opening old Final Cut Pro projects. And you've seen my videos, or at least you're seeing this one now. I'm shooting with 2 cameras. This is all in 4K, and not the old easy 4K codec, the newer, more advanced H.265 XAVC-HS codec. I've got some color grading on here. Sometimes I use effects. Look at this cool animated title floating in the room back here on both camera angles, and this camera's moving. I edited this on a goddamn MacBook Air at full resolution, no proxies. Feel free to pause the video and look that up if it doesn't mean anything to you, but it used to be really hard. This MacBook Air, this supposedly wimpy computer designed for college students to write papers on and make PowerPoints and access ChatGPT to fix their grammar or whatever. This thing can handle real video editing. Like, you could use this as a main rig and work for MKBHD or Linus Tech Tips. You would not need a more powerful machine. Although you'd want one. When I started editing videos, I was on one of those 16-inch MacBook Pros with the discrete GPU that would burn your lap. And that thing cost several $1,000s, and if you put one animated title over a 4K video, everything would start to stutter and lag and it would be impossible to work with. Anyway, all that to say, evidently everything that I use a computer for now can be handled by an entry-level model. I am no power user after all. I even loaded up DeepSeek R1. An LLM running locally through Ollama. This thing can run a large language model and doesn't even really hesitate much when you're talking to it. And this gets into the next thing I want to talk about when it comes to these newer model Apple Silicon machines, especially these extra new super fast M4 models. So you can get this thing for under $1,000. Well, then you pay tax, whatever. Where my M4 Max MacBook Pro was, I think, $3,600? Barf. With this Air, I went with the ever so slightly beefed up 10-core instead of 8-core GPU, 512 instead of 256 gig SSD. So this was $1,200. Still a third of the price of the big boy. But with all of these new M4 chips, doesn't matter MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, the individual M4 cores run at the same speed. The M4 chips run at up to 4.5 gigahertz. And that's true whether we're talking about the $600 Mac Mini or the biggest, baddest, I don't have one Mac Studio. They'll all run at up to 4.5 gigahertz. It's just with the MacBook Pro, instead of the MacBook Air, you get 10 performance cores instead of the 4 that are in here. This actually has more efficiency cores than this one. And then you get 32 GPU cores instead of the 10 that are in here. You do also get 4 times the memory bandwidth on the M4 Max. The memory can move data at 4 times the speed, and we'll talk about that too. And maybe most importantly for this computer, if you are a power user, this thing has no fan. So the only way it can cool itself is by slowing itself down, slowing down the CPU. Hence, I say up to 4.5 gigahertz. Actually, I ran a Cinebench test and it does it a bunch of times in a row, and on the third one, this was only running at 3.6 gigahertz. Which means if you've got some sustained effort that you're putting this thing through, if your whole job is endlessly converting big video files down to little video files for Pirate Bay, this computer will slow down a bit after it gets hot. But most processes on your computer, most apps, and most things you do on a Mac, for most people, won't be using more than a couple of the CPU cores at any given time anyway. On top of that, they only use them for little bursts, and things don't tend to heat up. Benchmarking sure does, and that's why this computer on paper is like 4 times the power of this one. But things like emailing, writing, spreadsheets, messaging, scrolling through Reddit, playing music, those things only use 1 or 2 CPU cores, which makes this computer exactly as fast as this computer. This is one big thing that was never true in the past 20 years before Apple Silicon and Windows computers forever. The higher level MacBook Pro always had faster processors, so just regular things would feel more snappy. But now the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro are the same speed. The M4 Max just has way more processors. So you can only feel the additional power when you're doing things that require additional power. And I'll remind you that this one is $3,600. Even Photoshop and Lightroom typically only light up 4 performance cores when you're editing. And you'll recall this computer has 4 performance cores. I guess where this could come into play is if you're editing photos while exporting long videos, while transcoding other long videos, all in the background. Now you're a power user. If you open up Activity Monitor, there are a couple of dozen different other things happening all the time in the background. But those processes are where the efficiency cores come in, and this computer has 6 of those. Those handle all of the light background work, all of the Finder updating and the Dropbox updating, and the music playing in the background, and keeping your 24 tabs that you have open in Chrome at all times refreshing their content. I see you. I see you running out of RAM and hitting the swap. You don't need all those tabs. You can make them into bookmarks and just open them when you need to see them. Stop it, Grace. But the main point I meant to make back there is that this computer is as fast as the Max, until you do extraordinary things that require more than 4 performance cores, or reasonably hard things that last a really long time. Video editing is neither of those things. You can professionally edit on this computer. You might want more RAM, but you don't need this thing. And I am blown away by that fact. That's unbelievable. I think it's important I say I have no dog in this fight. I don't care what computer you buy from Apple. I don't make money when you buy something. It's just nuts that this is enough. This is a great moment to say, please subscribe to my channel. I get like 150,000 views every month and 1,000 new subscribers. Less than 1% of you subscribe to the channel. Just subscribe to the channel. I think the video editing thing is because of the new media engine that's part of the SoC, system on a chip. The media engine takes out all of the processing that used to go into encoding and decoding video, which means your actual CPUs and GPUs are only doing little bits of work here and there when you toss up words or animations or effects. But the 10-core GPU is plenty beefy for color grading effects. And even this new magnetic mask thing that is, my God, literally from the year 2030. This is running in real time. I tracked a mask with an animated title behind a dude running around a field in 4K, and then I put a cartoon filter just on the dude. All of this runs in full resolution. So if you're a video editor and you need to be mobile and you don't want to spend a lot, yes, get this computer. Now, gaming, that's a place where you'll find that sustained effort that heats things up. And I will say that Assassin's Creed Shadows game is coming out in just a few days, and it's coming out on the Mac. But I just can't see that being a reason to spend an extra $1,000 on a computer that has a fan, says the guy with 2 computers on his desk. I started up Shadow of the Tomb Raider, one of the few AAA games that does run on a Mac, and with the settings on medium on the MacBook Air. And this is a cinematic game, so a cinematic presentation of 24 frames per second should be good, right? Well, it's hard on this poor thing. Roblox though, boy do I not understand that game. One minute I was in a flight simulator and then I was suddenly watching the Titanic sink. Clearly made for shit computers though. This thing can rip through some Roblox. Yeah, there aren't enough USB-C ports. There's only 2. But honestly, 3 isn't enough on the MacBook Pro either. So we're already bound to using a hub. And these things usually have a card reader on them too, which solves the other problem if you happen to be a creator looking at one of these. There is no card reader like there is on the MacBook Pro. This year's MacBook Air is fast as fuck. I think that's the message I want to leave everybody with. If your life consists of mini virtual machines or processing LLMs, or you're a video game designer for Rockstar, you already know that you need a MacBook Pro or a Studio instead. I don't know why you're watching this. You clicked on the fire thing. If you're here because you're kind of unsure and you're on the fence, you almost certainly do not need a MacBook Pro, and this thing could serve you handily for the next 5 years. 7 if you get more RAM. Goodbye. I'm drinking McDonald's coffee and I love it. You know, sometimes you just push the smoke button down for too long. What are you gonna do? On fire? Because this computer is fire. I'm only doing that once. I know that didn't work out that well. It's aluminum. Aluminum dissipates heat. It's gonna be just fine. Is the screen just fine? The screen's just fine.